Hello everyone, welcome back to The Mom's View. I am Kayli, this is Carly and Colette, and we are excited to be back. What's going on with you ladies? What's new?
Well, just getting ready for the holidays, like Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then I always feel bad because Gavin's birthday is right in there and I always forget. So I've been thinking about him a lot lately because I'm like, okay, don't forget to get him presents before his birthday. He's gonna be 14. Which means he could be driving.
That's crazy.
He did go hunting with Casey and the boys this past week, and he got a deer.
Very exciting.
So I'm very proud of him.
Now.
I was crying. I'm like, he's like in the wilderness, and he's gonna feed his family. And I was just so proud of him. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did he feel proud?
He did.
I didn't get to see him after, but I was like, good job, Gavin.
I think he had that moment, like, yes.
Yeah.
I accomplished such a great thing.
That's very cool.
That's so fun.
What about you?
I'm excited for Halloween, but I love Halloween.
What's your favorite?
My mother-in-law made Elliot, his costume, and it's so cute. And she's like, oh yeah, it was just so easy. I followed a pattern. I'm like, all you girls who say it's so easy to craft and I'm like, mine never turns out like that. So props to you guys who know how to sew, but she just like whipped up this dragon little costume and it's so cute.
I can't wait to see it.
It's so cute.
Well, I'm the same, just getting ready for the holidays. Well, actually, by the time this goes up, we will have closed on our house.
Nice.
And I have such mixed emotions. Every time I talk about moving out, it makes me want to cry. So I'm just like, I've loved it up here and it has been so great. And like watching the little boys walk down, Daxton walked up to get Winston, they walked back down and I was like taking pictures and sending them to Colette. It's just been so special. And I love the house and it makes me sad, but we're really excited to like feel settled.
It's like two good things, but two hard things at the same time.
And like told Casey, we are not moving for 18 years. We are going to be in this house for 18 years. I don't know how you move as much as you have. Oh, I always think about you. I just don't even know how you have done it.
Well, even now, whenever Shay talks about, someday we'll build our dream house, I'm like, this is our dream house. Don't even look at me. Don't even.
Don't say another word. Yeah. I really do want to just raise my kids in this house. And then I told Casey, then we can live in the mountains. Okay? Like, let's
then we'll get
just
there.
stay settled. Then we'll build an old person home.
Yeah.
So that's my plan. I'm excited.
Congrats. That's exciting.
I'm excited for you too. I know it's hard. Like, change is always hard. Like, of course, I'm like, don't leave me. But I also feel like I know that feeling. Like, you want to be settled in your own place, and it can be good.
Yeah.
It'll be a blessing.
And we are staying close by everyone. So that's good. We'll all see each other. And now that we're like back doing the Mom's View, makes me just feel like life is good.
Yes.
We need this.
We need our sister time.
Yes, we do. Anyways, I wanted to talk about something
this
that
my
actually,
sister.
like, I feel like this, like the Mom's View, this community that we've built with you guys has helped me so much with. I want to talk about self-love. And I feel like we've talked about that or touched on it a lot with other topics that we've talked on throughout the years. But I was listening to a podcast by Allison.
Oh, I love her.
From the Allison Show. She has a really fun podcast. You should listen to it. She's just so fun. We got to meet her and do a fun project for BYU TV with her, and she's amazing. I was a giant fan of hers before. When I met her, I just fell in love with her even more. I can't remember what podcast it was because I was just listening to it while I was doing other things, but she talked about having self-love versus being like self-centered or selfish. And that stuck with me because I started to think about it. Like, what is the difference? It's so easy. There's such a fine line between the two. I feel like. But then again, at the same time, I think that they're completely opposite.
Right.
Self-love and being selfish is so completely opposite from one another, but there's a fine line. So it's just kind of weird, right? Am I making sense?
No, I totally understand.
And another thing that really inspired me to talk about this today, because I kept thinking, we've talked about it, we've touched on it so many times, that we just blessed Layla this past weekend, and Casey gave her a blessing, something that we do in our church. And in his blessing to her, he said that he blessed her with love.
I love that so much.
Love for herself. And when he said that, I was just like, this is so needed in the world, like love for herself and love for other people, because we've mentioned so many times, you can't love fully unless you love yourself. Right. And I have never talked to Casey about that before, so it was just like, it just brought to my attention how needed this is in the world, and for everyone out there to know, like, you need to love yourself. And I have notes because as much as I love my brain and myself, I forget things.
You accept that part about yourself.
I accept it and I love it, but I need help sometimes. So A big inspiration to me was my kids. And it was after I listened to this podcast because I was thinking, am I being a good example to my kids? Do I want my kids to think the same about themselves as I think about myself?
I love that.
I want my kids to hear me say good things about myself, that I love myself, that I love this about myself, that I love, that I'm able to do these things, because so often I hear my kids say like, oh, I can't do that, or get discouraged or down on themselves. And I want them, and that's natural. Like, we all grow from the things that, we don't feel like we're succeeding at the time. We can learn to grow from those things. But I want at their core for them to love who they are.
Yeah.
And am I being a good example of that? So I have a lot more to say. Do you guys have anything else to say? I have a list of things.
I just feel like I want to stand up and be like, amen, sister, amen,
No, I love this topic. This has been a huge one for me over the past couple of years. And through the things that I've learned personally and read, is that self-hatred and selfishness is actually the same coin. It's like two sides of the same coin.
Right.
If you're a selfish person, you can't truly say that you love yourself inside, because somebody that truly feels love inside of themselves wants to share that, wants to reach out and help other people. It's like the love within reaches without. But if you don't like yourself within, then you're searching for that and you're trying to grasp it from external things, and it looks selfish.
Yeah.
Right.
So
It's almost like if you don't love yourself, I think we see this sometimes in the comments, and I can even recognize this in myself sometimes. Like, it's easy to take away from others. Like a truly confident person who loves himself doesn't have to pick others apart and tear them down. Like, you can contribute to others without it taking away from yourself when you know who you are. Right. And I think something with our children that I've learned is, I think that self-love translates over into self-confidence. And when you see confident children, you see children who are go-getters, who aren't afraid to raise their hand in class, who aren't afraid to stand up to that bully. And that's something that's the most important to me with Cooper, is that, and obviously Elliot, he's just a little bit smaller, but is that they have that confidence to be exactly who they are. I think we really live in a world where we're always getting criticized about, this is what's cool, this is the trend, this is what should be accepted. If you don't accept this, then you're a bully or you're a shamer. And it's almost hard to have boundaries and values and stick to your beliefs, because we live in such a world where you're criticized for those things that make you who you are. But I think that when you really, like you said, when you really love yourself and you can exercise that, it translates over into being confident with who you are, and confidence leads into you being your most true self and making decisions that reflect who you are. And I think it just kind of translates again over into success. And it kind of just like is this snowball, and then at the end you're just this big, happy, successful snowball. Yes, snowman.
Do you feel like society almost teaches us that self-love is selfish?
yes.
Like I feel like I've always felt like I couldn't look in the mirror and think, I look pretty today, because that would be being conceited.
Yes.
Instead of looking in the mirror and saying like, I'm not perfect, but I love who I am, and what I see, I love. And that's okay. Like, I feel like it's taken me so many years to get to that place where I see myself and I love who I am. I am not perfect. My body's not perfect. I don't look perfect, but I wouldn't change anything about myself.
I love that.
I love who I am. And I worry that in this process of finding that in myself, what have I done to my kids? Have I made them feel like they can look in the mirror and say, I love who I am. I love this about myself. Because I watch Braylee now shy away from the camera if she doesn't have makeup on, or not want to go to the store if she doesn't have makeup on. And I'm like, did I do that? Like, have I made her feel those insecurities because that's what I was taught? Have I now taught my kids to feel that way? And I do feel like you can reverse that by being an example of that, but it just worries me. And I do feel like there's already so many, from the outside sources telling you can't feel confident, you can't feel self-love. I don't know, do you guys feel?
I struggle with this one a lot, just in teaching it, but then I also accept and realize that, my kids are going to have to go through that.
Right.
Like,
That's true.
there's no way I can totally protect them and make them know who they are right now, because I had to go through a journey to discover that. Like, I definitely hated myself at different points in my life. Right. And I had to discover self-love through self-hatred, which is really tough, but you really can't know who you are until you address that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, we're constantly changing. Like, how can you, like, we were such different people a week ago compared to a year ago, compared to who we'll be in 5 years. So I feel like it's a never ending process, you know?
Yeah.
But something you said that made me think about was, I tweeted out the other day, I'm like, I really hate that I feel like every time I want to share a piece of who I am or my opinion or like my beliefs, I think being on the internet and on YouTube, do you guys feel like sometimes you're like, oh, I shouldn't say that because it could be perceived as this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or, oh, they'll think I'm taking away from this person, or I'm hating on this. And it's almost like being on the internet has, like, because when you said Braley shies away from the camera, sometimes I like apologize when you're vlogging. Oh, sorry, my hair's a mess. Because doing it for so long, you'll read in the comments, oh, Carly didn't do her hair today. And so sometimes I feel like I have to not edit who I am, because I really don't have a filter. I mean, I do to a point, just so I'm not offending a lot of people. But I feel like I don't have a filter, but there's times where I feel like it's hard to be your true authentic self in this world, because it's just like everyone wants to pick away at you immediately. And so it's almost like you get into that mind frame, you know, and you do it to yourself so that others won't do it before you.
Right.
But it's so true. Like, why can't we just be our true authentic selves and not let the good or the bad get to us? And I've said that before, and some days I'm better at that than others, but it's so hard not to let people take away from that, because I'm like afraid of hurting people's feelings, but then I want to be myself, and it's just like, you can't say anything right, you
It's
know?
really hard, because I think that we're all worried about coming across as selfish.
Right.
I
or
think
like,
that's just it. Like, and I think when people aren't in a good place, they do see that. Like, if someone heard me say, I love who I am, someone might think like, oh yeah, you're so great.
Yeah.
Well, I think that when people do that, it's because they're threatened by your confidence. They're threatened by your
Right.
self-love because they don't feel it within themselves.
Right.
And I've noticed that if I feel, like you said in another video that we put up, like when you feel like you want to pick somebody apart, it's usually because something within you is not being fulfilled.
Yeah.
And you can't really search for that outside of yourself. You have to give yourself the love that you need and love yourself, because then you won't feel that need to, you won't feel attacked by others'
Right.
self-love.
Like, it doesn't have to take away from you.
Right.
Yeah, that's something else that I thought about when I was thinking about this. So often it feels natural to want to try to get our self-confidence or our self-love from other people, from their opinions, from their comments. Like, we almost ask for it in ways, and you're never going to get the right answer, because no matter what anyone says, someone can say, you look so pretty today, and you'll say, oh, so I didn't look pretty yesterday? Like, you can always like go and pick that apart. You have to find self-love from yourself and from your journey. And I don't think that you should ever discredit your journey to self-love by comparing it to someone else's.
Right.
Like, you can always be like, well, their journey was like so great and wonderful, and they went through this hard time and they came out on top and they're so much better now. And someone else might think, you might look at their life and think like, they've always had money, they've always had a good family, they've always had so many good things happening. Of course they're gonna love themselves. But you don't know what's really going on in other people's journeys. And don't discredit yours because it might not have been as hard or as wonderful as someone else's.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I do that. Like, well, I love where I am right now, but I really haven't had to go through this.
Yeah.
So maybe it was easier for me. I don't know.
That's I think that's something we kind of talked about. I think it's hard. Like, I was telling you guys the other day, if I got pregnant right now, it would be really hard. And it would be hard to put out there, because at first when we were trying with Elliot, it felt like such a struggle in that moment.
Right.
And so if I were to get pregnant now, it would be such a blessing, because we had to try so hard with Elliot. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how could I be transparent about having two babies that close together would be very hard. Mm-hmm. But at the same moment, I know that there'd be a group of people who'd be like, well, you should be so lucky to get pregnant, and you should count that blessing, and some people can't. And so it's like, what, to kind of tap on what you're saying, like, your heart is allowed to be your heart without it taking away from someone else's.
Yeah.
Right.
Just because we haven't walked the same journey doesn't mean mine is any less hard than yours is, just because we haven't gone through different things. Mm-hmm. And you know what I'm saying? Like, some people I'll read, like, they've lost 4 kids and their life is so much harder. And I'm like, while I couldn't imagine going through something like that, like, you don't have to discredit your journey because someone else's seems harder or more trivial, because like you said, everybody has something they're going through that's a different. And I think that's something that's hard on the internet, because there's always somebody who like bring out a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even think about that.
Well,
you know,
and
or I
it's
didn't
easy
consider
for
that.
other people to compare. Like,
Yeah.
well, look at you compared to her, and she's did this, and you haven't done that, and blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah. So how do you stop that? How do you get rid of that?
I think you kind of said it, but I think that like if the bad can affect you from what people say, then the good shouldn't either. Because
I want the good to affect me.
I know, because it feels so good, right?
Every time you say that, I'm like, I'm letting the good in.
But then okay, so here's two things. So if people give you compliments, okay, so blah, blah, everyone knows that they've done this. You're feeling good. Like today I took a selfie. I liked the way my hair looked and my lipstick and my glasses, and I was like, oh, I just like feel cute. And then I was thinking about some like inspirational quote to put up, when in reality, like some girl posted this the other day. She's like, I have no inspirational bull crap to write. I just feel like I look good today. And I'm like, good for her. Like that's why you post a selfie. You're feeling good about yourself. But if you were to write that, heaven forbid, you'd be like, what? You're feeling good? You actually look stupid in your hair, then your sweater looks like a dog. You know what I'm saying? All the things. But then
looks like a dog.
It kind of does, but I would cuddle with it. But then what if your love language is words of affirmation? You know? So then how do you combat that? Like you love yourself and you're not going to let the good or the bad get to you. But it like kind of means something when someone's like, oh, you look good. Like that fills your love jar. How do you balance that?
Take the good. Take it.
When you have reservoirs of self-love, I'm just going to call it that. When you are consciously giving yourself love every day, then you don't need that for your self-worth.
Like your happiness isn't depending upon that.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
It's just
feels
adding
good.
to what you already have.
Let it feel good and be proud and happy, but it doesn't have to be like, she didn't give me a compliment, that means I'm a horrible person.
Like
when
a make
you're
or break.
attaching, yes, it's a fine line, but when you're attaching your self-worth to it, if you feel any letdown,
Right.
if it doesn't happen, that means then you need to give yourself more love because you're seeking for it somewhere else.
Right. And you'll always, like I said, be let down by that.
You'll
no
always
matter
be
what.
let down. It really comes down to being absolutely brutally self-aware.
Right.
Because when you can be totally honest with yourself and think, you know, because chances are if you're worried, like if you're like me, I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh, did I sound selfish when I said that? Like chances are you didn't, but because you have that mentality, but usually selfish people don't think that.
Right.
They're
That's
like,
true.
They don't have like the check and balance type of thing.
yeah, you don't have the checks and balances. So it's important to be really self-aware when you sit back and look at yourself honestly and don't shame yourself for it. Like, yeah, if you've honestly been selfish, just be honest about it and be like, you know what? I really was selfish when I said that. I don't really like that I did that. But as soon as you go into that shame place where you're just like, oh my gosh, I am a horrible, selfish person, then that switch is going to flip again and you're going to seek for fulfillment.
Right.
I don't know.
And I think you put up a wall and you're defensive. Like when you
Yes.
feel shame, then you're like, you want to put it on someone else and you want to
Like self-reflect.
it doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
And I
That's
think-
your way to like grasping for self-love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I think all the things you're saying are so great. But one thing I thought about is I also think the more you take away from yourself or shame or put yourself down, it's never going to inspire you to be a better person. And I think that if you're trying to be your true best self, like we can all sit and pick ourselves apart and just stare at ourselves in the mirror and hate ourselves so much, but that's never going to change anything and you're never going to feel better about your journey. So you might as well love yourself through it and be a kinder, better person to yourself so that through the journey of like if you're trying to lose weight or get that job raise or go back to college, putting yourself down so much is not going to inspire you to get to a better spot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I think if I hate my body enough that I'll just work out extra harder and I'll figure out a way to change it. And I'm like, it's just a miserable like way to get there.
That's when I always gain weight.
Yes.
When I'm like, I hate my body, I'm not doing anything, I'm just sit here and eat chocolate chip cookies.
It's like when you're shaming yourself, there's no way to get out of it.
Yeah. Just a vicious
It'll
cycle.
just-
So
And I also think to always be forgiving of yourself. I think that this is a hard journey. And when you're struggling to find self-love and you're struggling to get to that place, which I feel like I have my whole entire life, forgive yourself for putting yourself down. Forgive yourself for not feeling that you're right at that place where you should be. Forgive yourself for maybe being a bad example to your kids. Like, forgive yourself and just get yourself to that place. And I feel like I'm in a really good place now where I can truly say, I love who I am. Next month might be different.
Yeah.
Next month I might like just be in a bad place and then I'm going to have to start this journey all over again, and that's okay. Forgive yourself if you have to do that.
Yeah.
And just be caring and understanding. I saw somewhere that self-love is like respecting yourself and caring about yourself and almost treating yourself like someone else that you love. Like, you know, when you love someone else, like I love to give you compliments. I love to tell you what a great mom you are. I love to tell other people that. Why can't we tell ourselves that? And sometimes you just kind of have to even fake it until you believe it.
Yeah.
Do you think, like,
have you guys seen that video where those best friends have to sit down and look each other in the eye, and they have to tell their best friend the negative things they're thinking about themselves? So if I were like, we were doing exercise, I'd be like, your belly looks like a bowl full of jelly, because I think that about myself. But then when you say those things out loud, you're like, that's how you're treating myself. I would never say that to her.
You wouldn't say it to your very worst enemy. You wouldn't say it to someone that you despise.
I mean, I'm just kidding. Kidding, I'm totally kidding.
You know, like really and truly, you wouldn't.
But it's true, like you have to practice. If you're gonna be so kind to other people, you need to be that kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know? It's just easy because I like love you guys so much. You know?
I think it starts with yourself, always.
Amen.
One thing that my counselor told me is that sometimes when you have been living in self-hatred for so long, it really takes time to build up your self-love, and sometimes it looks selfish. She says, when you think you're being selfish, most likely you're not, and it's okay if you are at this point, because if you've been living in a place where you're just constantly putting yourself down or constantly thinking that you're not enough, then it's like a pendulum. Like it's gonna swing this way, because you've been over here for so long, it's gonna swing back the other way till it balances out. So if you feel like you are giving yourself self-love and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm being selfish, like check yourself and think, no, am I really being selfish, or am I just trying to love myself? Right. So I don't know, being super self-aware again.
I think an example of that in my life was when we moved to California. Before we moved, I was working constantly, and when you do hair or you do anything for other people, I feel like you're giving a lot of yourself, and I love to do that. I love to like give and care for other people and listen to them, and I felt like I was giving a lot. I felt like I was giving everything else that I had left to my family, and I was not taking care of myself at all. So when we moved to California, it was just like, it was like this vacation. Like we were working hard trying to get the Moms U started, but I had so much more time, and it was the first time in so long that I focused on myself. And I remember feeling very selfish because I would leave my kids, and I never did that before, to go out or to go to dinner or to go and do things, and I never ever did that. But those are my favorite memories actually with my kids, because we had dance parties in the car every single time we drove somewhere because I was so happy. Like we did fun things all of the time because I was so happy. So this time, when I even look back, I think I was really selfish then. My whole family was happier.
Yeah.
So like you said, it's not really being selfish.
It's that saying, you can't sell from an empty wagon.
We should make a shirt that says that.
With a little red wagon on it.
I will say it in every single episode because it's so true.
And lots of hearts in it.
Yeah, lots of hearts.
Fluttering out.
I don't know why this means hearts in the wagon.
All the handshakes with
Anyways, I love you guys, and I'm grateful to have you in my lives because I think that you have helped me love who I am, and I hope that all of you will love who you are too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys, well, that is it for today. If you have anything that you would like to see us talk about or hear us talk about, let us know down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Love yourself.
Love yourself.
Love yourself.